This is Forest Floor Mycelium Network, Episode 1. I'm your host, Matthew Flansberg. Today's June 11th, 2024. I was just thinking about the timetable and how it's hard as we try to make things work within a certain time frame. Sometimes the time frame was meant to be a certain way, and regardless of what you do, you end up following or finding yourself in the circumstances where things unfold the way they're supposed to. I think that's where I'm at this morning. Well, I know that's where I'm at this morning. I am going to be giving a 1-minute speech at my grandfather's memorial service at Fort Logan today. And I woke up, and of course, my first thought was, how the heck am I going to summarize a man who lived 96 years on this planet in a minute or less? It's just an impossible task. I'm certainly not going to fill it with the words or statement, "I only have a minute." That takes up seconds. So I've definitely been a little choked up this morning. I'm no stranger to speeches. When I was 12, I gave a speech with Jack Ancone in front of all of the junior high student council. I guess you'd call them student councils for each of the junior highs at a national conference. And I was 12. I think there was 3,000 kids in that audience. So I don't have any fear of speaking in front of people. Today, the only concern I have is what I can fill in 1 minute or less. That's the challenge. The good thing about starting your own podcast, though, is you're not limited to a minute. To say that my grandfather had meaning in my life would to be understating the importance of him in my life. He took over the position of father figure when my dad died in 97. And honestly, he did a great job, as best he could from a distance, right? So, while we spoke on the phone quite often, I'd only get to see him once or twice a year since I was, in my 20s. And there's many remarkable things about my grandfather, William Flansberg. I think the one that objectively sticks out the most was his volunteer work. If you've heard of a group called MOPS, Mothers of Preschoolers, then you know my grandfather's work. And I'll go into this in detail because I'll have to hear this story a few more times from other people, but he was the first accountant for MOPS. In fact, helped build their national charter, donated all of his time, never charged them a penny, but helped build them into a strong business model, non-profit business model that he helped them with their accounting, and now they're a national event that's touched the lives of thousands. And so from a point of inspiration, I've got the bar set a little high. Or you could say that I learned that it's possible to create a national chapter or a national group, a successful nonprofit that has lasted for decades. And you'd never know my grandfather was involved, because that's the last thing he'd do is brag about anything that he's done. That's another rarity, right? My grandfather was born November 9th, 1927. He died on Pi Day, March 14th, 2024. It's 35,191 days. How do you summarize 35,191 days into a minute? That's the challenge for the day. What's not the challenge is the purpose of this episode. And what I meant by our timetables controlling us. Today's episode is about values. Episode 1 is about values. Why they're important. Why they're important to us. Why they're important to you when you are engaging with getting to know someone or getting to know a group, right? What are the motivators? What are your values? And instead of having hidden values, we're gonna bring those right out into the open and tell you what motivates us. So I think the timing on this is divine, out of my control. I've had the outline for values, and then, I found myself preparing for the memorial service today. So, episode 1, I'm dedicating to my grandfather, who, over the course of this podcast, it will be revealed his many facets, why I looked up to him, and why it's important for me to internalize all of the lessons that he taught me, be brave and better than myself, and to reflect those things onto others. Even though sometimes I honestly don't feel like I'm capable or worthy of it. But now that he's gone, and he's the last shining light, he's the last mentor, the oldest one too. My other 3 mentors, they're all gone. They died earlier. 2 to cancer, and 1 to a heart attack. And they were all young. So, Grandpa, this one's for you. So why are values important? Why is this topic even coming up? What's the value? What's the importance of values? It's a great question. can you run a business or can you run an operation without values? 100%. I believe there's a huge facet of values that is involved with planning, however. And I think in the absence of planning, the values are a fallback that can generate behavior in situations, if those values are followed, that could steer the course, keep the ship on track, keep everything going in the direction that it needs to go. So values are, in this lens, a part of planning. Values can also be a way of being. And I think from that perspective, when your values become a way of being, maybe a way of existence, then you might be seeing a higher level of operation. So yes, it's a planning aspect, but it's also a part of the engine, part of the gearing, part of the core fundamental operations of the business, the group, the organization, the entity, whatever. Whatever the group think, whatever the goals are of the group together, this could be thought of as like operating systems, core fundamental operating systems, operating in different modularities with different motivations as well, different frequencies. And we'll get into the specifics on how you can analyze other companies, or when you're building your own, or when you are participating with other people and you want to start at the beginning. I think this is going to be a good episode for exploratory understanding of what values are, what they're good for, and how you can use them, leverage them to forge whatever it is that you're interested in forging in your own manifestation, your own life. Thank you for joining me. William M. Flansberg was born November 9th, 1927 in Trinidad, Colorado, to unusual weather. November 8th was the hottest recorded day in November, almost in recorded history in Trinidad. Ironically enough, the weather data for November 9th evening, there is none for the evening. So we have a 10-degree spike the day before grandfather was born. He died March 14th, 2024, Pi Day. He lived 35,191 days, which included 96 trips around the sun, of which 75 of those 96 years was spent as a father, and 47 of those years was spent as a grandfather. So nearly three quarters of his life was spent as a father, and half as a grandfather. If you recall, here in Colorado, Pi Day, March 14th, 2024, there was a huge storm. So grandfather came in with the heat and he left with a big storm. And I wouldn't do him justice if I didn't speak about his faith and how he communicated that to me. He never tried to convert me to his belief system. He just lived in a way which was admirable. And he took me aside 5 years ago and he said, everything of value that he had learned, that he understood, anything of value that he had come to understand, he learned in Galatians. And lucky for us, Galatians is very short. But I'm not going to read it all. I am going to read and paraphrase what I believe he meant when he said that to me 5 years ago. Life by the Spirit. You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge in the world. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. Further, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. "15 years ago, almost to the day, my grandfather took me down a road near a bridge where in 1948, a man named Roy Allen Shattuck died in a car accident, leaving a young wife and a 5-month-old baby named Roger. And this event coincided to my grandfather's return from the Navy and the GI Bill. And that's where he reconnected with Mary, my grandmother, and her baby, and began his relationship with the widow. Eventually, to marry her, adopt Roger, and then to go on and have 2 more beautiful kids with her. But the reason why my grandfather took me to that location was to express his guilt, I believe, that his entire happiness was based upon the death of another man. And he felt really indebted or guilty about that his whole life. To which I never truly understood why he felt that way. But from my perspective, you know, he made the choice to care about my father and then me. So I say to him, there was no debt ever owed. What I received from him was ultimately the highest gift that he could have given me, and that was his attention and love. And I think, in truth, he lived by the Spirit. And that's why Galatians is so important to him and to me in understanding it. So life by the Spirit, you, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free. But do not use your freedom to indulge in the world. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. And to my grandfather, I say this: there was no debt. In fact, if anything, I owe the debt. In that I understand the importance of caring about other people because you cared about someone that you didn't need to, that you weren't really obligated to, that you chose to. And to me, that goes deeper than blood because I never met the man Roy Shattuck, but I really knew William Flansberg. I think that's the most beautiful part of this story. And it's something that I have not, it's so rare that it should be applauded and it should be remembered and it should be amplified. And that's, I think, in the core of everything that I've learned and why the people I loved and why I respected them so much is because the ones that really stood out were the ones who cared about others and truly did something about it. I mean, those are the rarest of people. The ones who believe and then spend the rest of their lives doing. Ironically enough, all of the people that I've truly looked up to, money was never their main focus. It was people. Every single one of them. The most successful men I know were focused on people. And I mean true success. Positive, deeply intentional change. And what better way to honor them than to figure out what motivated them and emulate that. And before we transition into my values and the values of the company, the forest floor kind of group, I say this again to you. You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free. But do not use your freedom to indulge in the world. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. I am forever grateful and thankful for you to have been the most influential man in my life that I could talk to, that understood me, that cared for me, and had my best interests in mind. And I'm deeply grateful that you were the guy that showed up. So, Grandpa, thank you. I want to show you how much I love you by reflecting that on the quality, focus, and, as you would call, seriousness of my work. So to you, I dedicate this episode. And certainly a huge chunk of my heart was evolved because, you had such a big heart yourself. So you are definitely free at this point. I pray that you look after me and my family, and I can continue the work that you started. Thank you. Today is Father's Day, June 2024, and exactly 23 years ago today, I caught a rainbow trout in Jefferson County stream within miles of where I spread my dad's ashes years before, in some of the most beautiful territory in the world, wilderness area in the world. Again, my name is Matthew Flansberg. It's a roller coaster, episode 1. Today, we're really focused on values. And it's a perfect day to circle back on what really matters. And I want to tell a brief story, and I'll elaborate this on the Mycelial Network blog and get into the details of exactly what these values are, how we derived them. But I want to give you an overview on this podcast of, I kind of set the stage, so to speak, laying the groundwork on the importance of this stuff. But truly, this episode's months in the making. $23 ago to the day, my friends Peter and Daniel being my current business partner, were on a fishing trip outside Jefferson, Colorado. A 3-day adventure culminating in Father's Day 2021, or 2001. It's 2024, so 23 years ago today, I caught a rainbow trout on Father's Day. A little under 3 years after almost 4 years, so 3.5 years after he died. And today is Father's Day, and it's funny how these things kind of fall into place. But this episode on values just happens to fall right into place and right on time for this. Been working on this particular segment for months, really trying to dig in on what values are and why they're important. And I know from the fact that values are a guiding light that help you direct your direction, especially in times of maybe chaos or uncertainty. And if you have values that you can fall back on and that define you, they can oftentimes be the reason why you reach the top of the mountain, and the difference between those who succeed and those who fail. And it's not to say that you can't have a successful product or a successful company or a successful business without values. That's not true at all. There's a lot of companies that are very successful in the world that are devoid of these things. But if we really want to look at making an impact or making a dent, as Jay would say, we need to think a little bit bigger and a little bit more potently at the underlying drivers of our behavior and the meaning of why we are focused and moving in the direction that we are. And so you may not understand fully what a company is actually doing or what they are creating. However, you can easily understand their values if they publish them. So, values are an interesting array of concepts, right? And let's dig into a couple of those right now. So a quick Google search will yield a list of values, company core values, stuff like that. So if you do a search, you'll find terms like integrity, accountability, diversity, innovation, collaboration, boldness, curiosity, adaptability, passion, courage, honesty, leadership, creativity, diversity, teamwork, trust, compassion, respect, humility, terms like that. And the initial challenge for me came from a friend of mine who I worked with 20 years ago. He challenged me. He said, okay, what are your company values? And that's how we started on this journey. So for us, and I think if you're starting a business, do this exercise in parallel, but think about or write down in like a journal your top 20 kind of concepts or your top 20 things that you value or that you value in businesses or that you wish to be a part of or you wish people valued. And, I started doing that myself and I made this list. This is from the 11th of April of this year. So right after the eclipse. So I had love, people, growth, community, contribution, manifestation, creativity, courage, equality, acceptance, authenticity, adventure, humor, leadership, meaning, optimism, peace, freedom, cooperation, liberty. And for all the reasons that I could think of, those were the kind of high-level concepts. And out of that, I distilled it down to 6. And those 6 were love, contribution, growth, community, creativity, and adventure. And so after about a month, we got it down to those final 6: love, contribution, growth, community, creativity, and adventure. And I think those were really solid, and I was completely happy with all of those. I think that they encompassed the initial kind of grouping. And the reason that there are 6 is that the number 6 has been coming out of this project. The number just keeps repeating itself in different facets. I'll go into more of that at a later time, but there's 6 points in the main logo that you double that and you have 12 points, right? Which also resembles a clock. 6 sides is the shadow of a perfect cube at the right angle. So you can actually understand the qualities of a cube if you understand the distance between the cube and the shadow and the point of light behind it. A little bit of geometry trig there, but with a perfect hexagon, and knowing those distances, you can extrapolate the measurements of a cube, which is interesting to think that a 2-dimensional object can contain ultimately the information of 3 dimensions above it. And I would love to do an episode on higher dimensional physics. It has to do with exactly that, the unfolding of other dimensions within a mathematical dimension above it. Fascinating stuff. But for today, we're staying on target with our values. And these 6 values represented sort of the 6 sides to a well-balanced system. And let me explain a little bit more on that well-balanced system. All right, so I found my list. The 6 sides to a well-balanced hexagon, and I think this is more from a overall health perspective. But if we were to balance our physical well-being, our work financial well-being, that's step 2, mental well-being 3, social well-being 4, emotional being 5, and meaningful spiritual being 6. Those 6 sides, when those things are balanced, everything else it seems to work well in the universe. And so my goal was initially to kind of distill top 6 core company values and then kind of correlate those to a well-balanced hexagon shape, where those are the 6 concepts. Again, physical, work, financial, mental, social, emotional, and then meaning and spiritual. Those 6 facets were the balance associated with the 6 sides, and I'll have diagrams on the blog portion of our website that elaborate on this further. So I really initially thought that the exercise was kind of finished at that point, that I'd picked 6 great core values, that those would serve us well. I shared them with my partners, shared them with other people. It was fine, and we were just going to establish those and then move on to the next part of the business. And then I came across, and I love mandalas. I make them myself. I came across this guy on YouTube, and he broke down the chakra mandalas and did just a really fantastic job of this tutorial. And so I'm going to also link and show those on the blog as well. This is really fun stuff. So he breaks down how to make these chakras for the 7 chakras in that system. And so I was thinking to myself, why don't we look at the company values that we started? Why don't we look at those company values through the lens of the chakra system? And so, just to catch you up on the chakra system, there's 7 chakras. They have a mandala associated with them, also a color associated with them. And it's typically depicted with somebody in like a cross-legged lotus position or something similar, meditating, and these 7 chakras illuminate from the bottom, the root chakra, that's at the base of your being. Then it goes through the sacral to the solar plexus, which is the center of the center chest below the 4th chakra, which is heart. Then the 5th chakra, throat. 3rd eye chakra, which is between your forehead, and then the crown chakra above that. Now the colors: root red, sacral orange, solar plexus yellow, heart green, throat blue, 3rd eye indigo to deep blue, and crown violet or white. Those are also associated with this system. So I wrote down our six topics: love, contentment, contribution, growth, community, creativity. Actually, there was one in there that, so I think one was added. So I'll get to this. So I started shuffling ours in this system, and I found that we had 2 concepts that ended up in the heart chakra: love and community. And that, I felt that was interesting. And then from our previous list, and some of these get kind of muddled up, but we had growth. And growth seemed to align with the 3rd eye chakra. So we have the heart chakra being covered by 2 of our concepts: community and love. And then we had 3rd eye chakra being covered by growth. Root chakra, that ended up aligning towards the adventure quest, the very base of what we're doing. And that's like survival in the animal kingdom, so to speak. So the adventure part of our system kind of melted into this more of concept of a adventure quest, something like when thought through the root chakra, like it's the base of what we're doing. And so sort of like an adventure quest is the evolution when looking at it through the chakra system. Now the sacral part, we found that aligns with creativity, and that was one of our 6. And so if you want to validate this, ChatGPT is pretty fun, or just read up on the concepts of these chakras and then find out that a lot of these keywords kind of actually gravitate towards these things. And so again, the throat chakra, that ended up being contribution, And so contribution is kind of what we provide to the world. And it's funny because the podcast is directly a voice, so a throat. It's kind of funny that the contribution that we're trying to put together is exactly that. And so what did we learn out of this? Well, we learned that we're missing one. We were, from the lens of this, we were missing a very major concept. And that's something that aligned with the crown chakra. And so I felt like we were double down on the heart chakra, love and community, and that we were missing something in the crown chakra area. And so that got us as a team to once again go back to the drawing board. So let's patch this whole thing together. So we started early April with the question, what are your company values? We came up with a big list, distilled that down to 6. Thought we were done with that iteration, and then decided that through filtering it through the lens of the chakra system, it allowed us to dive deeper into our own psyche and our own, I think, our own values. And then just when we look at things from different lenses, and that's really kind of one of the major hyper-focused meta understandings you'll get with this podcast, is that perspectives of others is such a fundamental key to consciousness itself, not just in product development, business development, and understanding other people. And it's fundamental into understanding the nature of consciousness itself. So let's wrap this beautiful concept up. So through the chakra system, we now have an organization. We have actually a organization, a hierarchy of our values, which I think is awesome. So let me start with the root chakra, the red chakra. At the very base, what we're doing, and we're going to summarize Forest Floor's company values right here. Company value number 1, root chakra, color red, is adventure quest, is what we're calling it. It's an adventure, it's a quest. Forest Floor, at the base of what it is, at the very core, is a business that is needing to do business by making money and employ people and have an engine behind it. So it is an adventure quest. When I talk about products and product teams, even if they're inside of an organization, you'll notice that I will speak of them a lot of the times as pirate ships, or their own their own ship out in the water with its own hierarchy, its own system, its own values, its own organization. And you'll find that the pirates were interesting, and they were more democratic than, say, the English Royal Navy, which were very structured and hierarchical in their nature, where orders were barked down from the top. Whereas typically pirate ships were democratically elected officials, being the pirate captains, and they all basically shared in what would be considered equal amounts of the payoff if they were to get their bounty or their pirate, whatever their goal was, right? So there was kind of a shared gain and a shared cost in operating a pirate ship, as opposed to the English Royal Navy, where you were basically a servant on those ships. So back to what we're thinking about. So Forest Floor, in its essence, is an adventure. It's a quest. It's a business, right? That's one of our values. Is to have adventures, is to go on quests. The second value of Forest Floors aligns to the orange sacral chakra, and this is huge for me personally. This is like a defining characteristic that I really look up to, and that's creativity. So creativity, approaching problems in a creative manner, right? Always trying to solve problems from different lenses, different perspectives, coming up with novel solutions in a situation where obvious solutions might be present. So I think that living in that world of that creativity always allows you to try to see things from a different perspective, other people's perspectives, again, kind of doubling down on perspective. But it is the creative lens is super important. Moving on, the yellow solar plexus chakra, contentment. Now, originally this was gratitude, and they're very closely related. And this was an added value that I think makes sense from the correct lens of where we're coming from. So contentment is being happy with what you have right here, right now, regardless of what it is that you have. It is having gratitude and being grateful. But it's also a calming way of being that is different than just gratitude or gratefulness. It's more of a long-term being than a state, if that makes any sense. So this is a value that I strive towards, and this is from my own kind of personal journey and evolution. Contentment is a value that I strive towards, and by thinking about it, makes me realize the things that are important to me, and reinforces exactly what I'm trying to obtain in this life, and that's peace and calm. That's part of contentment. Moving up to the heart chakra, the green heart chakra. So we mentioned earlier, a couple minutes ago in the podcast, so we had two that aligned to the heart chakra, love and community. Now, I believe that love permeates every one of these in a certain way, because I love what I do. I love how we're doing it. I love engineering. I love design. I love things, and I love art and the things that we're kind of immersed ourselves with right now. So love kind of permeates all of it. So I think that a better version of what we're going for is community. And so the Mycelium network represents just that, kind of the thoughts and writings around the podcast, but really trying to build a community from the center that starts with our friends and our community, close community. Then we build from there, because just like Mycelium, it kind of grows out from the center. And so we drop the word love because we believe that is what we always are doing, and is kind of one of the emotional tapestries we weave. However, I think community was the better description of what we're actually building with Forest Floor. So Forest Floor's fourth value is community. The fifth value, throat chakra, blue, is contribution. And this was such a great word, because contribution for us basically is everything that we produce, whether that be a podcast, whether that be the shirts, whether that be our main product line. Contribution is what we are giving, and what we are providing. It is the core elemental manifestation piece. So this fifth value is our offering, is our voice in the form of physical things and in the form of our voice. It's really a kind of a lovely way that this fell into itself. So contribution, fifth value. Moving up, third eye chakra. This is something my business partner and I talk about a lot. This is indigo, deep blue. And this concept, the capitalists love this, but deeper than that, everybody loves this one. If you really love the word, it's growth. And there's so much to talk about with that word for what we're doing here at Forest Floor, because we're a mushroom related company, and mushrooms grow. But more importantly, I think from all the lenses that my business partner and I have looked at, this growth one is really fascinating. It encompasses, if it is kind of the vision of the company, I mean, it works for everything, the company itself, growing ourselves into better leaders, better members of the community, growing mushrooms, growing things, growing ourselves, growing I mean, just growth, mycelium growth, everything. For us, this is exactly a value that, like,
we would be missing this value if we didn't have this value. It doesn't make any sense for our company to exist without this, and to have it be part of that third eye, kind of that visionary part of what we're doing. Gosh, what a great value to have. And so the sixth value, growth, I'm loving it. Super, super happy. Now here we're going up to the seventh crown chakra, violet white. Okay. We didn't have a concept for this, which is so silly. And I'm so glad I did this episode, because now it all comes together. Like, so we get, the depth, the sadness, the connection, my love for my grandfather and my father, all this stuff. Why are we doing this company? First zero chapter, part 1 and part 2 was all about why we're doing the things that we're doing. So now we're getting into this. So the seventh value force floor is transcendence. Transcendence. What I mean by that is just that. Transcendence, the ability for us to go above and beyond, break through barriers, go beyond ourselves, evolve, transcend. Not only can mushrooms help us do that, but we can do that for ourselves through wonderful practices like prayer and meditation, exercise. All those things kind of align within this kind of this realm. But transcendence being our seventh value, really just hyper resonated and opened up like this, moment where I'm like, yep, we have to have that as well. It's up there with growth. It's the next stage of growth. It's that evolutionary jump, that quantum leap of growth, right? So that concept, folks, is so much fun. And so all these things allow us now to publish, and I'll do this the next couple of days, to publish these values in graphical format. After months of evolution, now we get to publish these 7 values on our website. And guess what? They may evolve, they may change, they may adapt, which is great. And I would say this: the more facets that we look at our company values through, the more refined and better it's going to be. So if you have any exercises for me out there in the ether, and you'd like to filter it through some other lens, please bring it by, because I think the exercise itself helps reinforce who we are, why we're doing what we're doing. Are we covering all of the ways that we, in our own minds, are imagining ourselves placing in and working with inside this new world? So I really appreciate your time. This has been a fantastic episode. It took a long time to string together, but it's important that we did it with the right content, and I finally feel like I got it. So thank you so much. My name is Matthew Flansberg. This is Forest Floor's Mycelium Network podcast. Thank you for dropping in on episode 1. Look forward to talking with you, or however this works, more in the future. Bye.